So I want to thank Faye and for inviting me, and thank Root Studio for this awesome space and for housing this wonderful series. So I'm going to be jumping back and forth between Point Blank and Drift, and then I'm also going to be reading some pieces from what's looking like it's trying to be a new manuscript. All right, so I'll just jump right into it. Swarm. In a mob of school kids, two boys shove each other before they're on the ground. They jab at air and grass, missing the jaw, cheek, and eye. A girl standing at the edge screams at the boy straddling his opponent. "Leave him alone! This won't make me like you." I watch from my car across the street after cruising through an old hood, 2 decades removed from my childhood. And yet this gust spirals the pinwheel of memory, whirling me back to 3rd grade, when I obsessed over Tia Jones, the way my friends swarmed the ice cream truck for great pixie sticks. She was a 6th grader who mistook my lamppost legs and powerline arms for a 5th grader. She was as old as the boys throwing grass in each other's hair, rolling around in a kind of awkward tango towards manhood. Watching the chubby kid overpower his skinny enemy, I'm reminded of Darnell, an older boy too short for Tia. That's when I wonder if insecurity is the biggest instigator, the one constantly egging you on to prove yourself. Like that day, Darnell kept asking, "Why are you so stupid?" It was the day I gave Tia a Valentine's card I made with construction paper and magic markers. She kissed my cheek. Her lips flipped the switch to the streetlights inside me. "Why are you so stupid?" Darnell said. He shoved me. "You so stupid you don't even speak." Tia's fingers locked with mine. "Let's get out of here." I didn't speak when he snatched her card and tore it. When I unzipped my bag, pulled out cleats and smacked them. I was a nest of wasps. Each cleat stung him over and over. A woman's yell calls me back across the street. It's the neighbor on her front porch wearing a blue tattered housecoat and floppy pink slippers. She holds up her phone and the crowd scatters. "Y'all need to stop. I got police on the line." I wish I had someone like her to save me from myself. Before Darnell's tears streaked over welts big as bee stings. Tia, nowhere in sight. Thank you. So this next poem is Conundrum, and the epigraph is like circa 2007, so that's when the poem was written. But the poem itself, and the first line of the poem cues you to it, actually happens a decade before that. So we're looking at like 97. And so around that time, I was 16, my brother was 15. And what's wild is we thought we had mastered the art of being cool. We thought we had hit that zenith, and so much so that we were going to put this pamphlet together to help less fortunate brothers, master that. And so what was crazy, the irony of this was that my dad was actually cool. A lot of people who grew up with my parents back in Trinidad would talk about how my dad was so smooth that a lot of the older cats that didn't have game would have him holler at women for them. And so my dad, again, going back to the irony, he, at this point, had come to terms that my brother and I had not inherited his cool genes. And so to make matters worse, he walks past our room and overhears us plotting this pamphlet. And for months, he couldn't look at us without shaking his head. So this is Conundrum, and it's for my brother, Drew, and my dad. A decade before, my brother and I were strapped inside the leather belly of an Oldsmobile 88 that roared like something feral, with speakers coughing up bass and spitting rhymes from Busta's first album. I don't recall where we were headed. Just that we cruised the city with our fresh haircuts and fragrant whispers of Egyptian musk behind our ears. We thought the secret was in scented oils or the abracadabra of a barber's clippers reducing stubborn curls to rows of waves. What we would have given for the answer to the riddles of women, the open sesame to a hidden door in a wall they might have erected for trespassers. And wasn't it deeper than what our father called a lack of game, when science defined pheromones as nature's airborne love potion? That decade, we rode with the windows down, the breeze a cool tongue lapping at our sweaty foreheads, both of us wondering what the recipe was. Blitz didn't have a name for what was in the air, just the sun throwing its rays around, clouds in a huddle, cheering in the distance. 1994, Deion Sanders in a 49ers jersey, staring down former teammates on the Falcons. Him high stepping an interception into the end zone was all a 13-year-old knew of grace. I fought my friends to be number 21, not knowing we were already marked, that everything beyond our parents taunted us like linebackers, that even the sun was a quarterback the clouds rushed on the field of sky. So my wife and I, we have, we love commuting to and from work together, and it's a 45-minute commute. Sometimes with traffic, it's maybe about an hour, and my wife loves to talk. And so remember that. So 45-minute commute, sometimes it's an hour. And as soon as I get in the car, I'm like, oh, how was your day? Now with the remaining 15 minutes, she says, oh, I'm so sorry, how was your day? And so my way of kind of like coping with that is let's go on the autopilot. So she'd be going like, for real? And because I'm not asked to recall, I'm cool. Now the autopilot gets really bad when I'm hungry. And a lot of people who know me know not to talk to me when I'm hungry. So this next poem is a response to a question my wife once asked me. She said, where do you go when you're here but not here? I wanted bananas, a bunch of them, spooned body to body like small yellow kayaks. So I missed what you said about the war in Libya. When you say Gaddafi, I think of how they spoil if they sit too long on their wicker thrones. We're in my car, listening to WTOP. We passed the Spanish market that calls what I love plátanos. Just saying plata, my tongue snaps like the slingshot's elastic strip curling A's like stones. You complain about the weak radio signal. I could nod and punctuate your frustrations with hums, as if I'm listening, as if my head weren't full of hunger's SOS. I could pretend that the radio static is annoying, as if the sizzling sound it makes doesn't have me thinking of sweet, chunky rumba slices frying in my mother's skillet, or plantains boiled whole with dashing dumplings and potatoes to eat with saltfish and coconut bake, plates and plates of large bananas, edible boomerangs, nature's golden sugar-filled tusk, the moon's waning frown or waxing smile. Striptease is for my nephew tag. Target's camera footage sends security guards rushing our nephew as he leaves the register before they love him to a back room. They mistake him for a thief returning stolen clothes for cash. Never mind the blouse he brought back was his mom's, that she couldn't find the receipt. And the worst she thought would happen was the cashier saying, please come back when you find it. But they're holding him for us to take home. The store closes in 20 minutes. Then he'll be cuffed and bounced to a detention center. He tells us this through my wife's cell phone that rang while we were cruising to a dim restaurant where curry and basmati rice fly their fragrant kites. Our tongues tingled thinking of vegetable samosas, pyramids of peas and potatoes and fried dough, drizzled with tamarind chutney and cilantro sauce. But the appetites vanish in the U-turn. We get there to hit the chief of security. What kind of mother gets her son mixed up in her drama? I want to punch this black man, but the badges and guns say it's a bad idea. Our nephew flinches at every heavy eye, thinking they know his type. As if his story wasn't tied to that boy 20 years before, browsing a store aisle, sporting his t-shirt and jeans he bought the week before, the ones security thought he stole before they ripped them off him. I'm sick of the striptease we're forced to perform when authority smacks us back in line for thinking we're like everyone else. I'm sick of the obsession with dark skin, the desire to see it locked down on scoring endorsements. Our nephew knows at 17 and 6 feet, he'll always fit the description. That his skin will justify random traffic stops, badges cuffing him, slamming his head into car hoods. That same skin says the incident at Target is them popping his cherry. Thank you. So I just have 3 more poems. It's still recent. So my wife and I, we had surgery. My wife has lupus, and we got terrible news in January that her kidneys had failed. She did a transplant. We weren't a direct blood match, but one of the awesome things is that there's a kidney exchange. And so I was able to donate to someone in the exchange, and she got a kidney faster than she would have had I not donated. And so 2 poems came out of that. Beacon is before the surgery, and then the poem after that I actually wrote in the hospital bed, the surgery, so Beacon. And excuse me, an intern asked, aren't you scared? And you remember the hospital clerk saying, what you're doing is courageous. You do what you have to for your wife whose life is leashed to a box, cleaning her blood before spooling it back into her body. It does what it has to because her kidneys can't. And weren't they courageous standing their ground before lupus took them out? Its gluttony left you scratching your head, lost in this new life. The one that marks you donor and your wife recipient. The one where the transplant center is another turf to navigate. This life, where words like renal failure and nephrectomy season your new tongue. You watch your wife sleep while the machine chimes and beeps, remembering the intern's question. Of course, there were moments that gobbled your bravery to a morsel. The emergency room visits, lupus nearly taking her out. And isn't she the courageous one? How she welcomes each day, even those where grief is the overcast sky. Those moments when the only light is a heroic heart blazing these dark streets, winding beyond the mysterious and unknown. Into the light. You're a floor below me, healing in your room. Both of us soar from the divine puppetry of science. God pulling the surgeon strings, sliding the kidney from beside me, routing it to its new body in Connecticut. And wasn't he present in the hands death dance? And how hope likes the operating room like a stage. Your new kidney ready for its debut inside you. Having traveled in a freight of prayers, 17 hours from Minneapolis to DC. And didn't our road here seem even longer? Not being a direct match. The hiccup in lab results. Us hurling our names into an exchange pool deep with uncertainty. And here we are, in our beds, an elevator ride from each other. This moment, like the 90-degree day beyond our windows. The cloudless sky, shadows receding in the sunlight. And I'll close with gluttony, and again, I just want to thank Faye, I want to thank Roots Studio, and thank you all for being an awesome crowd. Gluttony. Combing the bargain bin, a woman who's not your wife brushes beside you asking if the Roy Hargrove CD you're holding is any good. She's close enough for you to smell her ginger patchouli body wash, the angle she gives you in her leather bomber jacket, the one unzipped showing a white tee retracing her athletic stomach and arms, the jacket with its collar flared, makes her a bright blossom booming its honeydew scented tune along the neckline. And your father's voice from 2 decades before warns you about gorging on everything you see. You were 16 the first time he told you, when your hunger hovered like that summer at Myrtle Beach, sisters strutting the boardwalk beneath the honey barbecue sun, whose sweet light made each of them a long stretch of marinade, a chromatic scale of flavors along which your tongue was burning to play. And isn't temptation always lurking, eager to hold our common sense hostage? You tell the flower woman you're married after she points to a flyer for a Roots show and says y'all should go. When she says, "Are you happy?" you remember a brother once asking how you could love one woman when the world's a buffet. The possibilities of pleasure laid out like jumbo crab cakes, lasagna rolls, and buffalo wings. What's gluttony if not a symptom of our own hunger consuming us? Wasn't Jack as careless selling his sustenance for a handful of beans? You remember the story of the stalk that almost made him a hungry giant's grub. You still hear the pastor preaching about gluttons wearing the rags of drowsiness, which is how your wife found you, stumbling through the days. Your life before her was a stringless violin, a dark garden of wilted sunflowers, a camper trailer rusting against a moldy brick wall. You were once a city of power lines, boarded up clock towers, junked cars, and blazing drum barrel fires. What she saw in you, only her heart knows. Just like it knew you'd leave the temptress back at the listening booth, watching the automatic doors close behind you. At 16, you thought all there was to living was filling your appetite. Too young to know love is the everyday meal, that the lack of it kills quicker than the absence of food.
Take a 10-minute intermission. For those of you who might be interested in doing a brief interview, we have a few questions that they can give you. And Navarre is going to be retiring to the podcasting room. Have a